I say, you know, I grew up a white kid in a black world. When you live and you're different, well, the facts hurt. I said, I moved to the burbs and I don't fit in. Well, that's worse. And what I'm basically saying there is how when you're different, whether that's skin tone, whether that's socioeconomic, whether that's just feeling different, like we all feel like sometimes, the facts hurt. And I talk about how even when I moved to the burbs, I don't fit in, that's worse. Because I felt like even in a neighborhood which reflected my ethnicity, I didn't fit in there either because it was a very affluent neighborhood and we had no money. I'm just a nerd getting chased home on my bike after school fight, lay in my bed, cry at night. There was actually 2 incidents where I was chased home on my bicycle in the suburbs by the neighborhood bullies, and then there was an incident when I was in Ybor City where I was chased by 5 black kids on my bike. And I just remember as these things happened over the years, I would just lay in bed sometimes, frustrated, angry. After school fight, lay in my bed, cry at night. You know, just that feeling of alienation, which I think transcends all ethnicity. But in my case, it was a constant reminder. I say I'm hooked up with sin, hate the very skin I'm in, because every time I rhyme, they like, look, 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 Eminem. When I say I'm hooked up with sin, you know, the reality is before I was a believer, I was hooked up with sin. I was married to sin. I was deep in sin. The reality of that was that my life was lost. Hooked up with sin, hate the very skin I'm in, because every time I rhyme, they like, look, 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 Eminem. There's a lot of times where I would believe that I would think, if I just wasn't this, if I just wasn't this skin tone, if I didn't look the way I looked, would I be compared to Eminem or any other white rapper at that time? You know, I just wanted my music to stand on its own 2 legs. I didn't want it to stand on someone else's persona or whatever. Looking back again, I was in the worst place. All I had was Beastie Boys now in 3rd base. I'm the dude who always came down in 3rd place until I heard the story of your life and your grace. And essentially what I'm saying there is at the time, there were so few white rappers to get into. There was 3rd Base, there was Vanilla Ice, Beastie Boys, of course, House of Pain. There was just so few white rappers to look up to or to go, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think anyone that does music struggles with insecurity. Anyone that just lives struggles with insecurity. But when it's constantly reinforced in your life that you're this, 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 and this, it starts to mess with your head. And so most of my verse is really just talking about where I was. This dilemma that I was in, this problem, this issue, this situation, but basically saying when I heard God's grace, when I heard His story, when I heard this gospel presented to me that said, whether black or white, Jew, slave or free, all are one in Christ Jesus. I'm paraphrasing it, obviously, but just that the fact at the cross there is there's even ground, there is common ground, that we all are cleansed from the blood of the Lamb that ran red. And God's grace not only showed me that I didn't need to feel inferior, God's grace showed me that I wasn't defined by my circumstances. God's grace told me that I was not defined by my socioeconomic status. God's grace showed me that in Christ I am free, in Christ I am rich, in Christ I am forgiven, in Christ I have peace. And all these things are systemic when it comes to the issue of whether it be racism, whether it be segregation, whether it be the idea that one particular person is better than another. It all stems from sin, and that's all it is. We've been dealing with that for a long time. But when we come to the cross, we find that in Christ we have common bonds. We have what the song is. The song starts off and the song says, I don't do black music, I don't do white music. I do fight music, unified in Christ music. And that part of what Lecrae said, I thought was so poignant because it sums up, at the end of the day, the music that I do, the content that he does, the content that any of us do, is not defined just by one race or just one ethnicity or any of those things. I mean, I say we celebrate those things at the same time. I'm not saying we walk around colorblind. I'm saying let's celebrate the fact that we're different. Let's celebrate that God is a master painter that uses so many different incredible palettes for His creation. Let's celebrate that. But let's also not get stuck on that and realize that that doesn't make you better than me. and it doesn't make me worse than you. It just makes us a creation from a God who doesn't make junk. And to me, that's something to fight for. That's something that makes it fight music, unified in Christ music. And that's why I wanted to do that song.